Hi Winedelusters, and today we're going off to Rutherglen in Victoria.
Welcome to the Winedelust podcast. My name's Jeanene and I run a wine events business in Canberra. But my real passion is travel, and my bucket list is to travel to every wine region in the world. In this series, I'll be exploring some regional Aussie wine destinations. I'll give you some tips whether you're planning a romantic getaway, a girls' weekend, or you're dragging the kids along. So pour yourself a glass and let's get exploring.
I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land. When I'm going around talking to winemakers, the connection that they have and the appreciation they have for the land is really obvious. And it always makes me think of our First Nations people and their real connection to the land. So I acknowledge and pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Rutherglen is located right on the border between Victoria and New South Wales, and it's one of the best preserved gold rush towns. While Rutherglen is a tiny little town now, back in the 1860s, thousands of people descended on the village in hopes of finding gold. The vines here are about 150 years old and some of the oldest in the world. Rutherglen's one of my favourite regions to visit. It's located about halfway between Canberra and Melbourne, where a lot of my friends live, so it makes a perfect weekend getaway to catch up with my Melbourne-based buddies. It's not far from Albury-Wodonga, and it's a fairly easy drive from Sydney, Melbourne and Canberra along the Hume Highway. So you get that quintessential Australian big open plains as far as the eye can see. Take a couple of detours and you'll end up in the little town of Rutherglen. When you're in the Rutherglen, you have to try the fortified wines. Muscat is like Christmas in a bottle. To be a true Rutherglen muscat, it must be a particular muscat grape. This one is the Petite Grains Rouge, in my terrible French accent there. Before table wine, Durif is probably the best known grape in the region. It's also referred to as Petit Syrah, but one of their parents is Shiraz. So as you can imagine, it has similarities to a Shiraz. But if you like white wine, check out Marsanne. I've noticed that this has been popping up a lot around the region. Probably the most famous winery in the region is All Saints. It's housed in a beautiful, unique cellar door that resembles a castle. The Brown family also own the neighbouring winery, St Leonard's, and on the other side of town, Mount Afir Estate. They also own a wine bar in the centre of town called £1,000. There's restaurants on site and accommodation, and sometimes they have the Day on the Green concerts held there too. This is a real family operation, and it was such a pleasure to meet with Angela Brown and hear all about it. Thank you so much, Angela, for your time meeting me for the Winedelust podcast.
My pleasure.
Now, you're from All Saints, which
Yes.
is one of the, I reckon it's the most famous winery in the Rutherglen region.
Oh, thank you.
And I heard that you guys actually come from the original Brown Brothers family. I didn't realise that.
Yeah, we do. So we've got about 130 years of winemaking history under our belt, I guess, and we're fifth generation of that family. It's a real pleasure, and we're privileged to be part of such winemaking history.
Yeah, and so they're from Millawa, and
Yes.
you're only about 50 kilometres away in the Rutherglen.
Yes.
So what took your family to the Rutherglen?
Well, it's a long story, and we probably need a week to talk about it, but I'll give you the short version.
Yeah.
We grew up in Millawa, and back in the 80s, my grandfather and my dad, who was one of the Brown brothers, purchased the St Leonard's vineyard in Rutherglen, and then All Saints Winery came up for sale in the early 1990s, and my grandfather had always been envious of the fortified stock that was at All Saints Estate. Right. So they were fortunate enough to pick it up in a land sale there, and it came with all of those beautiful fortifieds that we have today. So a few years later, my uncles really wanted to focus on the American market with Brown Brothers, so they wanted to sell the winery again. But my dad had been heavily involved in the renovation of the property, so he'd completely fallen in love with the place and decided to buy his brother's share in All Saints Estate, but remained a shareholder at Brown Brothers. So my father passed away suddenly 17 years ago now, and it feels like yesterday. That time has gone very quickly, but left the two wineries to my brother and sister and I. So we've been running them for the last 17 years or so.
That's great that you can do that with your siblings. I'm not sure if I would be so successful with my siblings, but you've obviously got your key jobs sort of mapped out. Or
We do.
So you look after the
sales and marketing, and that's one of the keys, I think, is to keep in your lane, we say. Otherwise, things can go a little pear-shaped. But my brother, he's the winemaker and looks after the vineyard and winery and maintenance. And my sister, she's now looking after our projects. We've got so many projects on the go, and thanks to her creative mind, we always have a lot. So we're renovating our cellar door and restaurant at the moment. So she's been heavily involved in getting that sorted, and we also bought another property, Mount Ophir Estate, over on the other side of Rutherglen a few years ago now. So she's been really heavily involved in renovating the houses on that property, and we put them up on Airbnb. So we've got quite a bit going on. So.
I did see that you've diversified, and now it's not just the cellar door. You've got, because there's a cheese shop and a restaurant, and now the accommodation.
Yes. Well, the cheese shop, we actually renovated that space earlier in 2022, and we've turned that into a casual dining space, which is Bonnie, named after the Scottish heritage, and we serve pizza and salads in there.
Great.
And then we'll be opening the fine dining restaurant in a few months' time.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yes. The restaurant we had there before was called Terrace, and we were very lucky to have a hat with that restaurant. So we're hoping with new restaurant we'll be doing the same, and a real focus on local produce, because our region is just so privileged to have such an amazing array of local produce and choice.
Oh, that's great. So All Saints was an established winery before you took it over?
Yes.
Because the cellar door looks a bit like a castle.
Yeah,
so
it
do you
does.
know where that came from? Or was it built for their original cellar door, or did it have another history behind it?
Yeah, well, it's quite a crazy building. It is modelled on one of the Queen's castles, the Castle of May in Scotland. And it's a crazy story. There's two young Scotsmen in the early 20s, came out around the 1860s, and decided just to build a castle. Probably then in the middle of nowhere.
Well, the gold rush was probably around that time, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly. And a lot of these buildings in Rutherglen were being built around that time, like our other property, Mount Ophir Estate and Mount Prior, and there's some spectacular buildings, but they had such incredible vision, and for young 20-year-olds days that have that vision and tenacity, because they made every brick by hand.
Wow.
And they used an old brick kiln that's still out at the property now, which is registered by the National Trust, and so is the building.
Wow.
But yes, it just stands so tall on the horizon, the red bricks, and it's got two huge oak storage facilities inside where they stored all the oak barrels. But I think they built it as a wine storage facility. So when it was built back in the late 1800s, it was the largest wine storage facility in the Southern Hemisphere.
Wow.
But I don't know how long that was for, because there's a lot of other big buildings around it since. But yeah, it's got quite an incredible history.
Oh, fantastic. Well, it's definitely a reason to pop out there, for sure.
Thank you.
Now, I know the region is really famous for its fortifieds, and you touched on that before, but there's also now the table wines, and the Durif is the one that I think about when I think of the Rutherglen.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about what Durif is? Because some people might not know it. I think one of the parents is a Shiraz, is that correct?
It is, yeah. So it was developed, the Durif, by a Frenchman in the late 1800s in France, in Montpellier, and his name was Dr. Francois Durif, and he crossed two varieties. He crossed Shiraz and another variety called Palorson, and developed this variety called Durif, and he obviously named it after himself.
Why not?
And it has just thrived in the Rutherglen region. We've had it planted at All Saints for over 30 years, and at St Leonard's, our little neighbouring winery, for over 20 years. And it thrives in the region, and those Rhone varietals from France really do love the climate and the soil in Rutherglen. And I think that's probably one of the other heroes of Rutherglen, not just the fortified, but the Durif. And white wine that we make, Marsanne, is also really thrives in that region as well.
Yeah, Marsanne is another sort of that alternative variety, but you put a bit of age on it and it is a beautiful wine.
It's stunning. Yeah, we've been releasing some of our back vintages actually recently, and
any left?
And looking at
selling quick.
Yeah. We had to do the math very carefully to make sure we kept some in the cellar for the children, for their historic archives, and some for us to enjoy and some for our customers too.
Oh, fantastic. Now, you've got a bottle here.
Yes, it's sort of a skinsy wine, and it's not something we've made before, but as a team we've been developing this sort of new product ideas, and it's been an amazing little project with the whole team to enjoy along the way, and it's a Marsanne with a touch of muscat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's quite good. And Nick's left it on skins for a bit, and it's got that beautiful pink colour, and we've put it in a clear bottle and just with a standard cork at the top, and the labels to come, so you'll be able to see the beautiful label on it too. But I just thought I'd give you a bottle today and you can take it away and try it.
Oh, thank you.
But it's a really nice, fun wine to enjoy in the sunshine. Coming into spring, it's perfect for that.
And it's a drink now wine by the looks of it.
Definitely a drink now wine. There's a lot of popularity with these styles of wine at the moment, particularly in the independent bottle shops, and a lot of people are really enjoying them. And for someone, I guess, like All Saints has got more of a classic and heritage background, probably a surprise that we should be dabbling around in this style of wine. But I think Nick's had a lot of fun and used a lot of creative energy to make it, so we're really excited to launch it.
And that will come out sort of for the spring?
Yeah, it will, yeah.
Excellent.
And we haven't made a huge amount because it's our first go at it, but we're really excited by the results, so hope that everyone enjoys it.
Yeah, oh, that sounds excellent. Thank you so much. And can I ask, I was a massive participant with the Winery Walkabout for many years when I had a kid, but is that kicking off again?
Yes.
It kicked off this year again, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
And
So
did it go well?
We put it online for a couple of years during COVID, and then we did it again this year, and it went really well. We had so many excited people to come back and enjoy that festival again. It's always on the June long weekend, and then we do another festival during March, which is called the Taste of Rutherglen, which is on the long weekend in March as well.
And how does that one differ from the Winery Walkabout?
The Taste of Rutherglen is more about food and wine and enjoying the matching and really getting immersed in that foodie side of, whereas Winery Walkabout's a younger crowd, they get dressed up, a lot of live music, a lot of hilarity, and it's really introducing the younger market to our wineries and our wine.
Oh yeah, no, it was so much fun. Is there anything else you'd like to share about All Saints and St Leonard's?
Oh, I think just coming to visit. It's just such an amazing place. It's one of Australia's oldest wine regions, and there's over 22 wineries in the immediate area, and they're all family owned, which is what we're super proud of as a region, and I'm not sure any other region in Australia can say that. And being run by 4th and 5th generation owners, and just amazing history. So if you love the history, come and visit. But there's also plenty of other things to do, like enjoying the river, going on hikes, bike riding, playing golf. There's so many things to fill the weekend up with. So we'd love to see everyone come and visit us soon.
That's great. Oh, that's so great. Thank you so much for your time. That's really excellent.
Pleasure.
No, thank you.
My second guest is Ben Jones from Jones Winery. Ben is 6th generation winemaker, and the cellar door is in the original Jones Winery house. Jones has a bunch of alternative variety, which you'll hear Ben talk more about. He's just finished his studies, and you can definitely hear the passion and love for the different types of wines that Jones Winery produces.
Welcome, Ben, from Jones Winery. Now, I had a fabulous lunch at your winery a couple of years ago, and you guys are located so conveniently to town. You're only about 1 or 2 k's outside of the town centre.
Yeah, we're lucky. We're very, very close to town, and it's good to have our own bit of land. Where the winery is, you've got all the vineyard just around it, and everything's really close.
And I read that you're like 5th or 6th generation winemakers there.
6th generation, yeah, I am now, just officially. Just finished my Bachelor of Viticulture and Enology in South Australia and come home, and now I'm winemaking at home, back where I started.
Great. And so what's your favourite wine to make?
Favourite wine to make? Oh, that's hard.
From the stuff you've got at Jones, what's...
Malbec's. Malbec's our little hidden secret.
Yeah.
But it's just great. Yeah.
Why? Tell us about that.
Where it sits in our lineup, it sits with its slightly meaty, savoury, but sometimes gamey characters. It's not as big and bold as Durif and Shiraz generally is. It's just brilliant. It's a lovely, elegant wine that can sit and age, and we're just now starting to open the ones that are aged. Yeah, it's excellent.
Oh, that sounds so cool. And you're one of the smallest wineries in Rutherglen as well. So how big's your land there?
We're 10 hectares, but that might allude to us being bigger than we actually are, because we're 100% dry grown and always have been, so we don't irrigate at all.
So what does that mean?
Which means we don't water our vines.
Oh, really?
So we make...
Rutherglen's very dry, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It's very dry. It's quite warm. You're on old gold mining country, So you've got all the old gold mines that flooded a couple of 100 years ago. So there is water below the surface, but you've got to have your vines nice and old to be able to tap down into it.
And yours would be getting old if there's 6 generations.
Yeah, well, we've got vines from 1905 in the ground. Yeah. And a series of older vineyards that we're quite lucky to be able to use and make wine out of.
Yeah, that's great. That's exciting. Now, I saw that your flagship is the LJ. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, so that's what I was just talking about with the 1905 grapes. So it is mostly Shiraz with a little bit of Grenache. They're just in the same vineyard because when you used to get your cuttings, you didn't necessarily know what you were getting. So we just put it all in together. We make a very, very small volume of it. It gets brought in and it goes into our oak fermenters that are from 1860.
Wow.
So they've been used every year since 1860. And it's a wine its ageability is just incredible. And the wines we're making out of it now are just going to last and last and last for 30, 40 years and be great. It's packed full of flavour and we're very proud of that wine.
But you can also drink it straight away.
Absolutely. It's not something that is overly tannic. It's something that is made with elegance and balance in mind, but you can tell when you drink it young that you're perhaps missing out on some other flavours that are going to come out in about 10 years or so.
So you buy a 6-pack and then try some every 5 years.
Buy a 6-pack some every 5 years, yeah.
That sounds like a good plan.
We do our release dinners every year and we usually drag out a couple of older wines for that just to show.
And that's in Rutherglen?
That's in Rutherglen in our little restaurant.
Oh, excellent. That sounds fun. And what time of year is that usually?
It's in about a week's time, so...
In August?
In August, end of August.
Great. All right, so sign up for next year.
Absolutely.
That sounds good. You also grow Roussanne and Marsanne.
Favourites of the Rhone Valley in France, yeah. They suit our climate perfectly. And the wines that we can make out of it are just brilliant for food. So Marsanne's party trick is that it's what you buy if you need a wine to pair with a food that is quite hard to pair with. It's really forgiving. It's quite broad but keeps its acid and is able to stand on its own. So any strong tasting fish or poultry, yeah.
Because I often think you have to age that, but I just tried your 2021 and it was really lovely. So it's another one that you can drink now but also put away.
Absolutely. I love old aged Marsanne Roussannes. Unfortunately, I don't get to have them enough. But yeah, it is. It's packed full of fruit and tropical and melony and stone fruit in its youth. As it gets older, it gets a little bit creamier and a little bit more honeysuckle. So you do change what foods you pair it with, but it's still brilliant either way.
Awesome. Can you tell us about the Corel Drink? It's like a wine-based aperitif.
Yeah. So Corel is named after my grandmother, so Mandy and Arthur, the owners of the winery, their mother. Corel is a blanc aperitif, so it's sort of a vermouth style. It's made from a fortified white wine base, and it has botanicals added to it. So if you have a dinner party, that's what you hand people on the way in.
Oh, nice.
And it gets your palate ready for food. But it's also like sitting outside as a spritzer, a little bit of sparkling water on a summer's day is perfect. It's also the base of a heap of cocktails. It's just such a versatile drink.
Also, and you've got recipes on your website, I think. That we
definitely have got recipes on the website. And
is there anything else about Jones Winery you'd like to share with us or tell us about?
Just that we're a lovely little homely cellar door. So our cellar door is in our original 1860 building. So it's got the original stringy bark ceiling, heritage listed, all original bricks. We do everything by hand. So I said we were dry grown. We do everything by hand, all old techniques. So everything we make can be quite painful to make, but the result speaks for itself. And we make probably one of the smallest volumes of wine in Rutherglen.
Wow.
Yep.
Oh, well, we'll definitely have to pop out and visit. That sounds great. Thank you so much,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.
So some of my favourite cellar doors. I've visited so many wineries over my visits to this region, and I know that wherever you go, it will be great. In addition to Jones and All Saints, some of my favourites are Scion, which has got a sophisticated cellar door on a hill just right near town. Chambers has a long history as well and has a lot of alternative varieties. If you've got kids to occupy, A few have fantastic outdoor areas that the kids will enjoy too. For example, Valhalla has play equipment, and there's games at Campbell's and Lake Moondamere. As you heard in my chat with Angela, there's the Winery Walkabout weekend, which is on the Queen's birthday long weekend. It is so much fun. It's very well organised with buses doing different loops that guests can get on and off at different wineries. If you do want to go to this, I suggest booking in advance. Rutherglen is a tiny town and fills up quickly, but you can easily access the festivities from nearby towns of Albury, Wodonga, Corowa and Wangaratta. There's also the Taste of Rutherglen in March that focuses more on food and wine matching. And some other things to see and do. Well, while you're in Rutherglen, you have to check out the Big Bottle. Australia loves big things. There's the big banana, the big pineapple, and Rutherglen has a 36-metre tall wine bottle, which is just a 15 minutes walk from town. The nearby town of Corowa has a whiskey distillery. This is only about 13 minutes drive away. If you've got bikes to bring along, great, but if not, you can hire some from the Tourist Information Centre in town. There's lots of old converted rail trails that have been converted into bike tracks. All over Australia I see signs for the best pies, and Parker Pies in Rutherglen is another of these. But they do have some unusual flavours like kangaroo and emu. Overall, I found that there's not a lot of kid-specific activities. However, so many wineries are really kid-friendly, as Angela mentioned, with the river and lots of hiking nearby. So some quick stats. Rutherglen is a tiny town, so if you're going for an event, you need to get in quick for accommodation. Tuileries at De Bortoli is in town and has a nice wine bar in there too. Some budget accommodations at the Victoria Hotel and the Star Hotel, and they were both perfectly adequate when I've stayed. Rutherglen's only 13 minutes from the bigger town of Corowa and about half an hour from both Wodonga and Wangaratta. And the wines to try are definitely the Muscat and the Durif. And if you've got any queries, the tourist information there is so super helpful, and it's located right in the town centre. I really love Rutherglen, and if you're travelling anywhere between Melbourne and to Sydney or Canberra, it's definitely worth a detour to stop over for a night or two. Until next time, happy wine travels. For everything discussed today, check out the Winederlust website. And if you're interested in trying some of the wines, we have some events coming up too. And subscribe to my newsletter to find out what else is happening.